Today's talk is the expansion of materials of the antiquarian rare book trade. So we're going to talk about things that go on inside, outside, and all around the rare book trade. Today we have Mara Fath and Stephen Hill from Blank Verso Books. They are new to the ABAA. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Mara and Stephen met in a bookstore. Not Stephen's long ago store on Church Street, just some random old San Francisco bookshop. The kind that used to be ubiquitous, feature in the city. Our bookselling partnership began. That's when our bookseller partnership began. Years later, they left the city and moved to Napa, where we have an online bookstore called Blank Verso Books. Recently, I got the opportunity to join the ABAA and participated in the San Francisco Antiquarian Faire, which was amazing in their own words. The ever-changing landscape of rare book and ephemera selling is a bewitching challenge they tumble around with every day, as we all do. Welcome. Hi, guys. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Mara. You guys are going to definitely have to yell. Okay. Next up, we have Jon Munster of Munster Company. Hi, Jon. Jon Munster and his wife, Jessie, are co-owners of Munster Company, ABAA in Corvallis, Oregon. He first started in the book trade in 2001 as a clerk and buyer for the book bin ABAA and worked his way up to becoming head buyer and store manager. In 2017, he and his wife bought Black Oak Books in El Cerrito, California, and moved everything to their home in Oregon. Jon is an alumni of CABS 2015 and also took part in the ILAB mentorship program in 2020. Welcome, Jon. And we have Libby Ware of Toad Lily Books. Hi, Libby. Libby.
Yes,
Libby Ware and her wife, it's that happen all the time. Libby Ware and her wife, Charlene Ball, are the proprietors of Toad Lily Books, based in Atlanta, Georgia. She is the author of the award-winning Lum, a novel. She and Charlene have co-written 2 biblio-mysteries, Murder at the Estate Sale and Murder at the Book Fair, under the pen name Lily Charles. I will definitely have to read Murder at the Book Fair because I definitely feel like murdering people when I'm at the book fair. So
great.
I do at the estate
that's great.
sale.
Yeah, estate
I'm
sales.
sorry?
I
You
do
can
like
kill
working
somebody.
with them at the estate sales quite often.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get started. So I'm going to put the first question out there. And also welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. I actually have a stain on my shirt from my lunch. So, we lost Jon. What happened? Shin, we lost Jon. So we'll start. What was the earliest memory of the encounter with the antiquarian book trade? And what were the kinds of materials you would encounter that are considered antiquarian/rare? How about you, Libby? You want to start off there?
Well, I started selling books around 1990. And at first, it really was more like used books. And I was selling at antique shows. And actually, I'm going to talk about that more later. At that time, it seems like mostly what I saw were like modern first editions, or I'd see like more like I'm in the South, so a lot of Civil War, Robert E. Lee, you know, a lot of Southern older material, which didn't interest me a whole lot, and so that's kind of, you know, how I got started and what, you know.
What kind of condition were they?
Some of them were in good condition, and others were, you know, you could tell they'd been sitting on a shelf for a long time. And I started buying like at yard sales and estate sales, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And the first time I set up at an antique fair, like, you know, and there were several book dealers that did this, and I was just swamped, and I'm sure they got all my best stuff, which I had no way to, you know, I didn't know anything about how to look up prices, values, anything like that. So that was my beginnings.
Yeah. How about you guys, Mara and Stephen?
Okay, well, I used to be involved in finance for many years, but my first job out of college, can you hear me okay?
You're going to have to scream
Okay, my first job out of college, is that better?
better.
First job out of college was where I studied literature, was at G.P. Putnam's Sons. So I started, and that was before, you know, the great conglomeration where one company really owns all publishers now. G.P. Putnam's was a publisher in New York, for those who don't know. And from there, I just got an interest in books, and then I got involved in finance and was involved in as an analyst, financial analyst. So I really liked financial books. So I started collecting financial books and first editions because I liked literature as well. And then I started selling them, and that was kind of fun as well. As somebody once said, many booksellers turn from being a collector to a seller. You're still a collector, but you just don't hold on to the items for quite as long. So that's how I got started. Just kind of fell into it with I always had a love of books, started collecting books, and then started selling them.
Right. Well, yeah, how about you? How about you, Mara?
I always kind of loved books. I always read them. And then I have to talk louder. And then in
Yes, you do.
college, I started to kind of collect more ephemera, photographs, photograph albums. And in order to eat, I would kind of wander around and go to the various bookstores and try to sell them. And people actually liked those kind of things. And they liked collections in albums, you know, of kids' drawings, of photographs, of paper crafts, you know, of tickets. So that was kind of my first introduction as a grown up to selling books, was more of a ephemera and of things like that. I was never really too I never really found modern verse and things like that. I mean, I didn't really know that much about books, and they didn't really, it wasn't something I was interested in. I was always just more interested in albums and photographs and kind of an intersection of things, you know. So that's how it started in college, and then it's just, you know, evolved and it devolved and changed over time, because, you know, then when you become a little bit more curious about what you know, how much people will pay for things and what people are interested in, then you start kind of changing.
Mara, we lost your sound all of a sudden. But I would say to what you're saying is ephemera is the gateway drug, I believe, into that's basically what we're talking about here, is things that brought people into the rare book trade without the book part. We got you now. How about you, Jon? What brought you what was your earliest memory encounter with the antiquarian book trade?
Oh gosh. You know, I've been thinking about this for a few days, and it's I think the first fair I attended was probably 2012, something like that, 2012, 2013. Yeah, I'd been working at the book bin since 2001, but
So you saw a lot of books, right?
yeah. I really wanted to go into academia, and I didn't want to go too far in to the trade. I'd been asked to go to cabs. I had been asked to go to a few fairs and like, I don't want to go on a road trip. I don't want to, I spend your money on another employee. And because I'm, this is not going to be my career. And then I finally went to a fair. I went to the Seattle Fair in 2012, and just fell in love. That was, I mean, it was pretty much over for me then. And eventually decided that,
I think I was there. I think I was there in
Yeah.
2012.
Okay. I
Yeah.
um, it, gradually decided that, maybe I don't want to do academia. There's a number of aspects to it that were coming up that I was just like, I'm not going to be happy, and I'm going to just be thinking about retirement and going back to selling books. So why not cut out all of those years of frustration and to just sell books? So I think, probably 2012 is probably when I officially, had my first big taste of it. I'd been collecting for quite a while, but hadn't really taken the dive. I was just kind of collecting modern verse, things I wanted to read, and associated stuff. But it took a while to finally
Get your feet wet. Yeah.
get my
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I had a little bit of a different story because my father is a rare book dealer. So I lived with it. Not when I was really younger. He was in the periodical trade. But when I was a teenager, he actually went into business for himself. And I went to art school and became a pastry chef. So I had no real interest, although I was very interested in cookbooks, which is what I'm still interested in. But I do remember going to the first New York Book Fair, visiting him there, and just being in awe of the things that I saw there. And that is, I think, the moment when I thought, wow, this is also not just seeing his books, but seeing everybody else's material and how they differ from booth to booth was the thing that really set me off thinking, this is something that I could see myself doing. That was kind of the moment. And then the next question, I think, is a really interesting one, because I think it kind of shows how we all have gotten interested in the different parts of, I know for me, different parts of the trade, which the question is, what was the moment when you realized there was other ways to look at the book world, like look at it in a different light? And what was there a specific item? Anybody want to chime in first? Libby, how are you doing there? What was your first time you were seeing things besides the Confederate material that you were coming across that you realized, I can look at this not so much the way the picture frame, but I can take it out of it?
Yeah, it would be when I started going to actual book fairs and setting up at book fairs. And that was, 20 years ago, maybe. And I'd started noticing, different things. Some people would have, like a lot of paper. And then about maybe 10 years ago, an ABAA member said to me, it's all about the ephemera. Everybody's into ephemera now. And so that's when I really started channeling a lot of my efforts in that area, because I'm interested in women's movements and temperance and LGBTQ. And there's a lot of paper. And, some of those things, I don't even take books to book fairs anymore. I just, take the periodicals and the associated ephemera.
Right. Yeah, it is. Ephemera is the gateway drug. Um, uh, Stephen, how about you?
I had a specific time. This was a long time ago because I've been in books for a long, long time. But I was at an estate sale, not one of those where you wanted to kill other people. But can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah,
So
I
anyway,
also I put the
I was
captions
at a-
on,
I
which
was
is
I was in an estate sale, and it would happen to be Anne Rice's estate sale. She lived in San Francisco, and she was moving to New Orleans. And this was before but while she was writing, uh, vampire, her first vampire novel. At any rate, I went late, and I went through stuff, and I found a couple diaries was writing.
oh,
I even said, "Oh, these are your diaries. You don't." She said, "No, no, you can have them." And they were great because they talked about. She was saying, "Oh, I'm just going to get this book published. I hope it's going to bring me enough money so I don't have to worry when I go to a grocery store about how much things
wow.
cost." And that's when I realized not only that things are different, that ephemera is a gateway drug, because I still love books, but I realized a couple of things. One, I want things that excite me. I'm not so specific like cookbooks or something, but I want something that excites me. And if it excites me, hopefully it's going to excite somebody else. And the other thing I think that's important that it taught me was things have a story, whether it's a book with somebody writing something in it, or a book nobody is quite aware of, or magazines, things that have a story. So that kind of got me away from just first editions and things of that sort.
Right. Yeah. Um, Mara,
And I wish I still had those diaries, but I don't.
did you sell them?
Long time ago. Yep. For a
Really?
tiny sum, but yep.
Good. Because that is an amazing find. That
That was
is,
an amazing find. And really, I really just asked her because I didn't want to take her diaries, but she said, nah, it's okay.
that is like a rookie. That's a rookie thing where like you come across and you're like, everybody's just going to give me their diaries.
Well, yeah, it's both a rookie thing, and yet it's another thing. When I look back and I think of the times that happened, I go, oh, that makes it so fun. But then I think how much time passes, that amount of money, it's not like if it happened all the time, we'd all be very wealthy, but it doesn't. So we remember those moments.
Yeah. John, how about you? What is like working at the book bin,
Yeah,
or is it something else that caught your eye?
well, it's kind of, hmm. I think, well, it probably started with my collecting. So I would, I have these authors that I love, and I would keep an eye out for, first editions of their works. And then I would also just look for anything related to them. So there's Calvino, my favorite author. I found on Etsy, there's a young woman in Portland who she would make Viewmaster reels. She basically had, if I remember right, she had these two cameras set up on a board, and they used this particular kind of film. Instead of creating a negative, it was a positive image. So she would set up a scene and take, I don't know how many pictures of the same scene, say 200, cut the pieces of that film after it's processed, and glue them into die cut Viewmaster reels like these. So she had a set of 4 reels for Calvino's Invisible Cities. She did one for Kafka, Fear and Trembling. I think she had about 6 different ones. And she would do these events in Portland where everyone would come in, be handed a Viewmaster, one of these things. And it was kind of a group showing. Everyone would, click the thing at the same time. There would be a soundtrack. And yeah, that was probably my first real experience, was buying something for myself, for my own collection. And then over the years, I think it was probably at Cabs where it was finally like really spelled out just how varied the
Right.
trade is. There's, I think, the example of someone that saved the real estate ads or like little magazines or whatever for a
Right.
particular area, showing kind of like how an area was gentrified over time. It's just, it's such a, I don't know, there's so much.
There's so much history in
Yeah,
paper. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, actually my memory of how I started looking at things differently actually did start with cabs. Was Adam Davis of Division Leap was the guest speaker, and he started talking about one of the collections that he had, which was people who were unhoused, their signs, and he was collecting their signs. And at that cabs, we were actually still in Colorado, and it was the year that for some reason President Obama was also on campus. um, and there were all people who had all these signs, and so after his talk everybody ran out to get the signs that Obama had left, people had left for the Obama. And it just kind of made me look at everything. I remember telling my daughter whose partner was in a band that was really taking off. And I said to her, you should really keep everything that they have done, because they started in like the basement, of a house in Philly. And I was like, you should keep all the paper, because this is really this history. This is what you can look at the world. Same thing with some of the women's marches that I attended, the first ones in New York City, and looking at all those signs. It's just, it's all around us. So that's really exciting. Alexander, our president, said that was Jose Guerrero's collection of real estate flyers. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Of the things that you're talking about. I've heard that done in Cleveland as well. Mara, do you have something you want to share there?
I think going along with
You got to speak up.
going along with the flyers and all of that, I actually really love photographs, kind of photographs of demonstrations going back, but where people aren't posing, there are just, the backs of them and the pictures of signs. And can you not hear me? So that's that's something that I've been kind of looking at and kind of forming little collections of, because we actually really like to go to estate sales, and it's kind of fun because it's really impossible nowadays to find things in the wild. And we kind of compete a little bit. We'll go into this house and go, okay, can we find something interesting that really excites us? Usually it doesn't happen, but we try for each one we go to see if there's something unique and interesting. And we've been kind of finding people take these random photographs when they've been to protests, and we've kind of been finding those kind of things, and just all sorts of we're not looking in the bookcases so much. We're just kind of looking around and trying to like grok the whole setup there, and just get excited about finding things. I'm kind of rambling, which is
Do you ask the people who are running the estate sales if there's anything, like whether it's somebody's house that somebody had just passed away? I usually ask if there's any paper or I ask like these kind of interest. I try to, same thing, I look at the bookcases and then I'd say, is there something else they might have collected? Like, do you ever ask? We can't hear you.
not usually, because when we start asking too many questions, then we find out that they throw away the ephemera, after you ask these questions. So we just kind of don't. We'll, different estate sale companies do their own thing. So we'll just kind of wander in and see what's going on. And
Yeah. let's see, does anybody have any, oh yeah, we have you seen a shift in the trade regarding the materials represented by the dealers? And when did you start noticing this shift? John?
Oh, gosh. That's a good question. I mean, definitely leaning more towards ephemera, towards, you know, the more unique materials. I mean, there's still, from what I see at fairs, there's still just, you know, there's loads of books. But there's probably more, you know, paper, stuff like that, things that are kind of adjacent, but I'm trying to think of like you know, like Ian Kahn's what was it, that commode, is that giant book that folds out and then there's a hole, you put the chamber pot in the top. So it's like it's the world's coolest porta potty I've ever seen. You know, there's stuff like that showing up more, or so it seems to me. But I'm trying to think of, like, you know, have I noticed for particular dealers things changing? And I can't say I really have, but definitely more of an emphasis on ephemera and stuff like that.
Right. What about you, Libby?
Yeah, like I had mentioned before that, you know, someone had told me that that was, you know, really going on. And so that made me start paying more attention, you know, the places that I did go, you know, just that there was more ephemera out there.
Right, right. But what about in terms of the, like, not necessarily the I'm thinking about, like, for me, like the material in terms of when I'd been to an RBMS and I noticed early on that Lauren Bear was really focusing on labor. And you know, in terms of the type of material, so it could be a book, it could be ephemera, but I had not seen such a you know, such a direct look at a subject, and looking at it from a whole, looking all around, not just, you know, on the labor movement, but how labor in and of itself, you know, is a construct in our culture. So I noticed that is when, for me, I started seeing other people you know, seeing that as well.
Obviously, the going back far enough, the internet changed everything, because before
Yes.
that, a rare book was something
The internet.
that in stores, a rare book was something that, you know, you didn't find in your town or in your region. Now that book and the whole entire stores of books, Black Oak being a real example, suddenly 80 copies of that book online, and everybody knows how to look online. So
Right.
all of those first editions, in my mind, became, you know, really not worth very much and not worth going after. And so there was somebody who said, and I think it was the Rare Book Hub guy, said the only rare books he thinks are ones you can't find copies of on the internet. And I sort of go along with that in a way. And that's what's changed for books. I love books and I love the uniqueness. I think ephemera is like books. It's going to come and go. I mean, so many now, the ephemera shows, there's like tons of ephemera, and some of it's very, very interesting, and people are still going for that. But I think books still have a place, and it's like you were saying, Libby, it's when it joins with Lizzie, excuse me, when it joins with a you know, like a labor movement, or like Japanese Americans, or some field that it can be part of the ephemera, the book, etc. And I also love books that have marginalia, which for a while people
Right.
hated.
I was gonna
I love that.
say the same thing, is that when somebody is either written in a book or left, I mean, with cookbooks, people leave so many things in
Oh, that's
books,
great. Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's
They're
just,
overvalued.
it's mind blowing. My favorite story for me is I had two diaries of the same woman who had come from Germany and come to the U.S. to New York. So you could see the arc of her life, and it starts in German, it ends in English, and there are all these pieces of paper that she had written recipes on that were stuck in the book, or all kinds of things in there. And there was one piece of paper that was written on the back with a recipe, but then you open it up and it was typed letter, and it was typed in German, and it was a letter from the Jewish resistance,
Oh,
Oh, that's
telling people
great.
where to go if they wanted to get work. And it
Yeah.
just like blew my mind. It's just
Mhm.
things like that you find in books is spectacular.
It is
Mhm.
amazing.
Um,
Yeah, we could probably have a whole
yeah,
section on things
yeah.
that people found in books.
Yep, exactly.
Found in their books, right? And I'm always looking in books. And sometimes, it's a labor of love, because sometimes you don't find anything and you've spent, a good couple of hours, and you're looking for that needle in a haystack. But, when you do find something like that, I mean, that was really interesting, because I did look up the people and found out when they had been, in a concentration camp, and they had died, and,
Mm.
the people had written the letter. And it was just such history that was right there in front of you. It was amazing.
It's
I
amazing.
guess this is the part where I guess you guys are might be sharing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it is amazing how sometimes you'll spend days. I just refuse to give up looking for some people that are in a book, and it just doesn't work out.
I need
But
to,
it's like searching for books. Other times you look for somebody and go, oh my God, is that person interesting? And it
Mhm.
makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
Right, right. And the subjects that people are asking for, I think, also have shown the difference about what people, what universities are looking for. I know at the last New York Book Fair, not this time, but year before, when I was showing, most people were asking me for gender related items. And that, I think that's fairly new. And so that makes you look at the things that you have in your in stock in a different light, or maybe you're looking for more things in that realm. I mean, I'm personally I'm interested in women's history and cultural shifts in our society, so I'm happy that they're looking for this type of material. You have to.
Yeah, me too. Because the last book fair I went to was the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair, which is a great book fair. There are a lot of ABAA dealers that set up there, and not nearly as expensive as an ABAA fair. But yeah, I did really well with anything that was trans, just was like flying out of my booth. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, everybody is looking for that right now. Mara, we cannot hear you.
Asked to look
Nope.
at people's libraries, to come in and look at their books, just, people. We ask about their ephemera because they never think about the collections of ephemera that they have, that they're not even aware that they have. Letters, from relatives, just everything in the genre of ephemera. So that's something that you can always ask your clients when you go in and look for books, is to ask them about their ephemera. We don't ask at estate sales because, they're not the person. But when people do ask us to come in, that's, and many times their books are kind of worthless. That happens in Napa a lot. They're mostly about wine and really,
They're not worthless.
well, a lot of them are, but their ephemera is fascinating because the people do really interesting things, and
Right.
they have it in bins and all of that. So that's, and they're also really happy that their stuff's not, kind of like, boring, but they have this great ephemera. And that's just, I think that's a great place, when people do ask you to come
Yeah.
in and introduce their books, to ask about that, because at first we never thought to do that, and then all of a sudden we started doing that, and it was like the light bulb.
Right, right. or even other dealers. I bought a collection of a dealer's daughter's notes that had been given to each other in school. It was
Mm,
amazing because she kept all the notes from her high school,
mm,
the back and forth notes, the way they were folded, what they were saying.
mm,
It was an amazing collection.
That's great.
And I wish I refuse to keep anything because I'm a book dealer, not a collector, but that was something I could have collected. We have a question from Kathleen Stewart. How do you even begin to know how to price ephemera? I know what to look for and have found so much cool stuff over the decades, but I always have a hard time knowing how to price it.
mm.
Pay for it if you were.
Libby, what do you do when you
Oh, Stephen
you're
was starting to speak. I'll go after him.
No, I was just going to say, think what you would pay for it if you were a collector. Sometimes it depends on my coolness level. If I think, oh, this is so cool, I don't care if it doesn't
the
sell.
coolness
I'm gonna price
level?
it up here. And
I
if
like
think,
that.
yeah, you know,
Mhm.
and you try and, the usual way you do with books, try and see if there's similar stuff out there.
Right.
Price it that way, but it's my coolness level, how much I want to keep it.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, it is hard. I guess I just try to think again, like, what would somebody else pay for it? And, what did I pay for it? And, how am I going to make a profit? I know there's a lot of leeway there, but, as I always remind myself, you can always, mark something down. So don't be
That is
afraid
true.
to put a ambitious price on it.
I've actually said to somebody recently that sometimes instead of lowering the price, you should make the price higher.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes, it works.
Yeah, that has worked. Yeah.
I have another question from Frank Thielman. Have any of you actively attempted to try your hand at items that are book or writer related, but not paper based? Printing plates, yes. Personal belongings, yes. The doorknobs of famous authors. Anything?
Hmm.
I mean, I have, a collection of steel plates from milk bins right now that I have put up with the different, sayings from the milkman on what items you can get the next day and how to pay for your items. It's kind of cool. Anyone else have some weird, we can't hear you, Mara.
Old pottery that was printed with like Henry Evans prints, botanical prints, or Salvador Dali did something for a Swiss porcelain company. So we've done some tie-in things like that, but they're not that cool. Evan prints, then you can throw in the pottery too. I mean, it just makes it a little more three-dimensional.
And I have books from old printers, American printers, from the colonial days, and sometimes there's little knickknacks that go along with it.
Right, right, little, yeah, objects.
Oh.
This is actually the great time for, I think, I know Libby and John wanted to share some unique items that we were going to share on the screen with our viewers. John, you want to?
Sure. Let's see. It's been a while since I've done this. Oh goodness, this is oh, this is changed. Oh, sorry, things. The window shut down. Let's see. Well, how about Libby goes first, and I'll see if I can figure this out in the meantime.
What do you have to share with us, Libby?
Okay.
show and tell time here at Brown Bag Lunch series.
Okay. So as I had mentioned, I started out setting up at antique fairs, and one of my good friends collected political items. And so, and a lot of them were pins, and he was, he was also interested in the suffrage movement. And so he shared with me some ribbons and scarves and things like that, that, were used promotionally for the suffrage movement. And so I have a couple of things, and this first one is a silk ribbon, and there's kind of like three images on it. It was a breakfast that was held in honor of a teacher at Abbott Academy, which is a women's college, was a school for girls and women, and it started in 1829. And so this item is from 1892. And what's kind of interesting is, here's our picture, and then we have, a list of who was on the committee, and then we have a menu. And so for those of us who are interested in menus, it's a really, cool.
Yeah, they put menus and all kinds of different things. We don't see it right now. Did you put it up there?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had it on share screen.
No.
Okay, let me go back. Let me find Zoom again.
While you're talking, when you're finding that, I had a tablecloth that was embroidered by everybody in a World War II. Was it World War II or World War I? I'm not really sure. British outpost, and it was, a whole tablecloth. It was very cool. And everybody's name was embroidered in with their signatures. It was super cool.
Okay, hold on. I went to my item and now I'm having trouble getting back into Zoom. And all I can
Anybody
see.
else have it? You got it?
Now let me see.
Okay. We hate dead time at
I know.
Brown
So
Bag Lunch. Okay. John, do you do you have yours up?
I think
Ready to go?
so. Yeah, hopefully. Come on, there we go. Let's see.
Ah, there we go.
So, I've got a blank screen. Can
Oh,
you
well,
see
we
me?
can see the individual pieces. I think you just have to click on each one of them.
Oh, okay. It's just, that's weird.
Maybe.
Oh, no, maybe it's gonna do something. Oh, there we go. How's that?
We see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh, okay. So
Uh,
I'm seeing an individual thing, but that's really weird. Oh, good heavens.
Oh, this is why, you know what? We're book dealers. We're not computer specialists, right? This is what my father told me years ago when we were having a problem with something. And he turned to me and he said, Elizabeth, we are book dealers. There we go. We've got it.
Hey, okay. So yeah, one of the with the black oak stuff, we have over 1,800 boxes of unpriced, uncatalogued material. And over the past several years, I've kind of been going through it and kind of cherry picking some stuff out of it, and then getting a sense of what's there. And you can see parts of large collections that they bought. One of them was a collection belonging to a printer and typographer. So I took a bunch of typography to San Francisco, and I've had this other stuff that I've kind of set aside that I'm trying to, it's like, what am I going to do? Am I going to do an archive or what? But some of the stuff that I've come across are these little, what would you call it? Swag, I guess, from paper distributors or paper makers. And this one thing is this little kind of toy, I guess, printing press. Yeah. So on the right, there's these strips of folded paper, and you poke one into the little red and black press there and turn the knobs, and there's another piece of paper hidden in the fabric there of the rollers that has printing on it. So you turn it and it looks like, it's putting out something that it's just printed. It's just this little gimmicky thing. There's another, let's see, do I advance? Maybe, oh, there we go. Here's another one. There's a little metal plaque. Apparently, in the little booklet, it talks about how once upon a time, the lucky few people that had basically fire insurance would have this on their building, and the lines of people that would be bringing water to put out the fire, they would work quicker if they saw this on the building, because then they knew that they would get a bonus from the insurance company for helping put it out faster. Yet again, it's what is it? I can't remember what this has to do with paper. Oh, it talks about a sales incentive. Here's another one. It's a money clip. Apparently there were some fake bills that went with it. It's again from this Oxford paper company. And then this bell, which basically ties in the ringing of a bell, how the Oxford paper salesman loves it when you ring. It's, give them a call, place an order. So it's these random little things that kind of show the relationship and the attempts to get sales from paper companies for these printers. Just, I don't know, it's I've been sitting on them, along with like internal memos and stuff like that, proofs. So it will probably all be put together in one collection eventually. But just kind of some of the more interesting adjacent
Yeah, I would
material.
say you shouldn't sit on that much longer, because I'm already wanting to see the whole thing together at a show. You could probably take up your whole, it looks amazing. I mean, you think about the internet now and how that is part of the loss of these little things, because the objects that are connected with books and paper is
Right.
basically what we're talking about, which is super interesting.
Right.
That's great.
It's,
Libby,
yeah,
have you figured
it's
out
fun.
yeah. Have you figured out your sharing O screen?
Unfortunately, let me
So why don't
see.
you just tell us about it then?
Okay. I spent so much time putting this together, and Shen was so nice to help me. But for some reason, when I get Zoom back up, I'm not seeing down at the bottom, where it says, let me see, share screen. Let me see if this works.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Now I just have to get it so that I can see it. Okay. Okay, so this is let me see. Okay, so you can see the front with Miss McKean, who they're honoring. And then over here, if you open it up, as you can see up at the top, it has a straight pin stuck through it. Unfortunately. And then if you open it up, then you see this last list of the committees and the guests, and then you have your menu. So it's like a 4-course breakfast that they have. And then on the back of it, you know, when you have it closed, pinned, you know, folded back down, then on the back, you see this picture of the Abbott School.
Oh, wow. I actually love pins. A lot of people pin in recipes into books, and
Oh,
I just,
yeah. Yeah,
I
you
know
did.
it's rough, but you know, it's so cool. Or even like sewing it in. It's just, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the last question because we're starting to run out of time here. What is the most unique, unusual item that became your personal collection that was supposed to be part of your firm's inventory? Well, I'll start. I don't have any because I was schooled by Roy Young, bookseller, that I am a book dealer and not a collector. Although I have to say, I mean, I do have a million cookbooks. I'm moving on Saturday, so I'm now packing them up, which is absolutely horrifying. But along with all the books in the shop. But yeah, you know, sometimes, as you know, you all know that you can have things for 15, 20 years, and then somebody buys it, and it's like you've owned it. So sometimes you get something and it goes right away, and sometimes you have it for so long, it's almost like your collection. But I always find it very funny when people come up to my booth and they say, "What's in your collection?" And I just, I'm like, this is an item that they refuse to tear out of your fingers.
That's hard for me to say because I am a collector.
You are
And
a collector.
I am a collector, yes. And usually it's like if I buy it, I know I'm buying it for myself. So it's kind of more the other way that I might have collected it and then and then said, no, maybe I can put this for sale. I've had it for a while. Yeah. So one thing when I got it, and I mean, actually I
You
did
don't try to kid yourself. You really just,
no,
yeah,
no. I say I'm a collector
yeah.
and a seller. Yeah, yeah. And so one thing I got that at the
Okay,
time
I
I thought
like
was,
it.
I
The
thought was
honesty.
unusual, right? Um, is so I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and I collect Flannery O'Connor, although I have sold a couple of her things, but um this friend of mine had a shop in the back of a regular kind of a used bookstore. And so she had her little antiquarian shop behind it. And this woman walks in one day and she says, I'm a cousin of Flannery O'Connor. And she sold her some Flannery O'Connor things. And what I thought was unique at the time was a recording of Flannery reading um, A Good Man is Hard to Find. And so it's a
Wow.
recording, and so we listened to it. And so since then I've heard, that it's like in an audiobook or something like that. But at the time I just thought that was totally cool and unique.
That is.
And so just to brag that also she had a copy of Wise Blood, Flannery's first book, and it was written to an aunt and uncle of Flannery's, and she signed it Mary Flannery because when she was growing up, that's how she was known, as Mary Flannery. And I haven't been able to bring myself to sell that yet, but someday I think I will.
Stephen, you were saying something, we just couldn't, I don't think we could hear you.
Bookseller, not, can you hear? I'm a bookseller.
Yeah, now I can.
I'm a bookseller, not a collector. And so everything gets sold, but I do price some things high. I have Maria Montessori's, probably her most important book, written in Italian, signed and inscribed several times to somebody important. And, I price that and I still have it, so I'm collecting it. And when it sells, I'll say,
Oh, so you price it so high that it's not going to leave you?
Yeah, I'll let it go,
Oh, I see. That's
So,
that's a strategy.
yeah. So, when somebody say once they were a collector, and I used to be a long time ago, And then I'm still a collector. I just can collect many, many more things because I sell them. I sell them all. I just don't collect them for as long a period of time.
Right. John, you?
There's a number of things that I just haven't priced. And they've been
So that's
sitting.
your theory. If you don't price it, it doesn't move.
Yeah. It's and there's some stuff I finally have done it and then it sells and I'm like, ah, dang it, I really missed that. So there's there's like this huge stack of stereogram cards that I'm in no hurry to price, and our kids love them. They come into the shop and it's one of the things they go to. Yeah, there's
This is like the psychology of the book world, like just showing the inner workings of like how we go around, like
right.
like making these kind of decisions in our heads about our business.
Right. It's like that, that stuff hasn't gone home, so it hasn't become part of my personal collection, but it hasn't been priced. So it's kind of in this limbo.
It's
And
in like the purgatory of
yeah. Someday
So-
I might get around to it, but
and
I'm in
someday
no
you might
hurry.
not. Wow, that's great. Well, we are at the witching hour of 3 o'clock, and this has been super fun. I'm so appreciative of you guys taking your time out to share your little bit of your business with us at the Gender Equity Initiative here on the Brown Bag Lunch. Thank you. If anybody out there has any other topics or something else that they want to see explored in a brown bag lunch, contact us at ABAA headquarters, and we'd love to talk to you about anything to do with the rare book trade, with libraries, with anything like that. It's really a fun place to have these conversations.